All right, we got our recording going. So tonight is our November, I can't believe it's November already, November 1st, Ready Northwest Emergency Preparedness meeting. So we only have a couple of people here tonight so far, so we can go ahead, just introduce ourselves, where we're at in town, not your specific address, but what area of town you're in. And then if you have any announcements that you'd like to share with the group. So I'm Jackie Worster, and I am in the River Road area near River Road Elementary. And I don't have any announcements right now. So Fred, how about you? I see you up next.
I live south of the sewage treatment plant near the West Bank Bike Trail. Cartwright. We're trying to call Chelsea on the phone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, she was texting me earlier, so maybe she got caught up.
We had a little neighborhood meeting last week discussing the effects of the power outages a month or so ago. Who had generators? What did they do? A couple people have backup battery units that kept the refrigerator going, or sort of a battery powered emergency light that if the electricity goes off, the light bulb stays on. I guess Jerry's has those. Someone mentioned a water filter. It starts with a B.
A Berkey?
I think so, yes. I guess they're kind of expensive if you get the biggest ones, but if one or two people have them, we can share them in the neighborhood if something goes wrong with the water.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great. Does anybody on your block have one of those water filters?
Yes. A lady at the corner of Norman and Copping Street. And I think Chelsea's going to buy one. I have a personal Life Straw thing I got at Fred Meyer's. It's for backpackers mainly. So it's lightweight, just for one or two people.
Yep, I have one of those Life Straws too. I've never seen one of the Berkey or Berkeley. I don't know anybody who's had one, so I'd be curious to hear what they think of them.
Or someone online.
This lady down the street has one, and she lives in Hawaii half the year and uses rainwater barrels and filters it through this Berkey filter and says it's great. It works for her all the time because she's pretty much off grid in Hawaii.
Wow. Some firsthand experience. That's great. Awesome. Let's see, Ed, I see you up next.
Okay, well, I'm Ed Farron. I live in the Bethel neighborhood, and you look at a map of Eugene, I'm in the kind of the far northwest corner of the Eugene area. And what was the other? Was there more?
Do you have any announcements to share?
I'm back. I've been kind of off the grid for months, and this is my first meeting for quite a while.
It's good to have you back. Awesome. All right, Teresa, would you like to introduce yourself, what area you're from, and then if you have any announcements?
Sure. I'm also in the Bethel area. I'm near Golden Gardens Ponds. I am curious to ask Fred what he did when he said he had a neighborhood meeting. Was that like the River Road? Now I forgot the name, what they call themselves. But anyway, like a larger group, or was it an immediate neighborhood like your block? Because I've been trying to get up the courage, maybe is the right word, to talk more directly with my neighbors and find out who has what, skills as well as what equipment. And I have not done that. I guess I'm just kind of chicken. Not sure what kind of response I would get. So I'm wondering if you could share your experience a little further, how you guys got going.
I think well, first it was just a neighborhood. Several people are on an email list that Chelsea has, and she just kind of met people at the mailboxes and said, well, what do you think? And then she sent out an email and we all did a Zoom meeting together.
So
You might
meeting, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You might take somebody with you and don't wear a dark hoodie or something like that. Look
Say
like
that again. There was static in the line. Say that again.
take somebody with you and look friendly. Don't wear a dark hoodie.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Just be bold and say you're kind of doing an assessment for the neighbors. And if they want to be included, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. They can share, maybe they have special skills like medical or a chainsaw, a generator, a propane barbecue in case the power goes out. If they want to be shared on this list, I mean, there's people that probably don't want to share everything, and that's fine. Make that known to them.
Do you know of somebody else that has a list of things like that? I mean, it sounds like almost going on a scavenger hunt to say, what do you have and what are you willing to share? I wonder if somebody might not want to say what they have, like if they're afraid somebody's going to steal it. Anyway, I'm wondering if you have a list of things like that, pieces of equipment that would be extremely useful to have in an emergency.
There's probably something available from Red Cross or the Map Your Neighborhood organization.
Yeah, there is definitely a list available. And Charlesy, I know you kind of spearheaded, I think they live, Fred and Charlesy live near each other. So Charlesy, do you want to share any more on how you kind of got that started?
Yeah, it was very informal. It was actually during the pandemic. And so there was a lot of concern about not wanting to meet in person up close, but we were able to have conversations at a safe distance and just found out that a number of neighbors were concerned about emergency preparedness and we're kind of relieved that there might be a possibility of talking amongst ourselves. And we started out really slowly, but I could share with you. How do you pronounce your name? T-R-E-S-A?
It's Teresa.
Teresa. I would be happy to have a conversation with you outside of this meeting to share with you what we have. We keep people's contact information confidential unless it's in our neighborhood, but I can certainly forward you some materials that we have. I think was really helpful for me was in realizing that we could design it any way we wanted and not follow a prescribed cookie cutter model, but there are some things that the Map Your Neighborhood program has that are worth considering for discussion purposes. And then I think you'll find that the neighbors you find, even if you start out with only 2 or 3, you'll start coming up with ideas. That's what we do as people will have some experiences or ideas for conversations, and then we grow it from there. And I'd be very happy to talk to you about that and share with you some of the things we came up with.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say you're thinking of doing this. And I was scared terribly when I was first doing this. And then a couple of people were right there wanting to talk about the same subject. So it's In fact, this last meeting we had, it wasn't really on my list of things to do. And a couple of neighbors said, can we please have a meeting to talk about what we learned in the power outage? And I thought, yeah, that's really, we've come a long ways in the last year and a half or 2 years to have that a kind of familiarity and comfort with each other. So, yeah.
Yeah,
it
that
feels
sounds
good.
great.
It does, yeah. So, I don't know if you use the chat, but if you want to give me your contact information in a private message or whatever, I'll be happy to contact you.
Okay, I'm using my phone right now and I'm not used to doing that for
Okay,
Zoom
you're not
meetings.
able to do chat, of course.
So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm able to do that. But
Yeah, okay. Well, does Jackie have your contact information?
I don't
I'm
think
not
so,
sure.
but let me post this. So I just posted an
Okay.
email address in the chat. Are you able to see that at all, Teresa? Does it
Well,
come up?
that's what I was gonna say, is that let me play around a little bit and see if I just haven't found the right buttons, or maybe I can't do it on my phone. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, you know, I don't know if I
Yeah,
want to
here, let me
broadcast my phone
pause.
number either.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me pause the recording real quick. Let's see if I can do
Okay.
that. All right, so that's exciting that you're interested in talking to your neighbors. That's really what the goal of these meetings are every month, is just to keep the conversation going. How do we, I think the point that Charlie made about realizing that it doesn't have to follow a prescribed model, it doesn't have to be the same as somebody else's, is really important. You have to make it work for your own neighborhood. Everybody's not going to want to give you their contact information. They're not going to want to tell you what they have, but they might still be interested in just talking to you and finding out, what everybody else is up to. So that's exciting to just keep the conversation going. Awesome.
Hey, Teresa, let me say that I live pretty close to Golden Gardens Farms also.
Oh, okay. I think that I might have seen you at some of the ABC Zoom meetings. Do you
Yes.
participate in that?
I
Okay.
have in the past. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Nice to make the connection.
Yep. Nice to meet you.
If you can plan in-person meetings, if someone brings cookies or people can bring their own beer, that helps the meeting flow.
I'm sure.
Good idea.
We actually haven't tried the beer. We'll have to try. That'd be great.
That's funny. Awesome. All right, let me double check what else we had on the agenda. It's a pretty loose agenda for tonight, but we did want to touch on the upcoming presentation that's coming up on November 14th. Charles, if you'd like to chat about this for a few minutes. We have the presentation from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on dam safety risk and flood inundation mapping. So this is going to be the River Road Community Organization. It's their normal meeting time of Tuesday the 14th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. But the whole meeting is dedicated to this topic.
It's Monday, the 14th.
I'm sorry, Monday the 14th. You're right. I was reading Tuesday for today. Monday the 14th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And the whole meeting is dedicated to this topic. So, Charlie, is there anything you want to share about kind of what's happening there?
Well, we've been doing a lot of outreach on this. No way of knowing how many people will show up for this presentation, but we have sent out invitations to emergency preparedness persons in with the county and Eugene. I believe also the Springfield person, the coordinator there. This topic hasn't formally been talked about in the Eugene Springfield area, as far as I understand, since 2014. And at that time, it wasn't possible to take copies of the inundation maps that were presented to share with the general public. And so things have changed quite a bit where they have these inundation maps now online. And we're hoping that there won't be any technological glitches, but we should be able to get a walkthrough on how best to use the National Inventory of Dams, I think it's called the NID, and look at some inundation maps that show what might happen if if any of those dams did breach, and what kind of a flooding challenge that would present for us, and then have discussions around that. The Army Corps of Engineers will be answering a lot of good questions about seismic safety of the dams and what they're doing to maintain the dams, and if something like that were to happen, what the alert system and our notification would likely be. What we're hoping to do is have a good discussion with people asking their questions. We've got quite a lot of questions already that they are prepared to answer, and start a dialogue that hopefully will go on for years. And we would never be left in the dark as long as we have on this subject. So far, my experience of talking to the engineers at the Army Corps has been very positive, and they seem to be very responsive and understand why we would be nervous, even though they have great confidence in their dams and their ability to maintain them. But it's important for us to hear it from their perspective, but also for them to hear why we would be nervous about that, especially with climate change and the fact that their own NID materials state that the two ways in which dams are most likely to ever breach would be from a very large earthquake threat, or a situation where there was some kind of a landslide and that the saturation of the earth around the dams was very high, and might weaken the dams. That they're going to know the technical terms for all of this. I don't, but I think it's important that we hear it. And that's, I think it's going to be very, very good. We're having a bit of a rehearsal tomorrow with them to make sure that we can identify if there are any glitches between their ability to do the technical aspects of their presentation in a Zoom format. So we're hoping to not find any problems and to have a glitch-free presentation on the 14th. So any questions about any of that? Or yeah.
Yes, actually,
Fred?
I have one.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Teresa, and then Fred.
I'm just wondering, I'm guessing that it will be recorded because I have a conflict that night, but I would very much like to hear the presentation.
Thank you for asking that. Yes, it is going to be recorded, and several people have asked for the same thing. We record all of those meetings. And
Great.
it should be available for posterity so that we never
Okay.
have to wonder what was said at that meeting. Yeah, thanks. Fred, do you have?
One question I would have when this presenter has their meeting, from some electricians I've talked to, most of the dams are computer controlled from some central location. And is it susceptible to a computer hacker to just open the floodgates on all of them at the same time? And
Oh, no. Yeah, that's an excellent question. That's a very, very good question. Certainly the issue of possible terrorism has been brought up before. And so I think some kind of question along those lines, what precautions are there for hacking or other kinds of mayhem and mischief that could go on. Very good, Fred. Thank you.
I could speak to that a little bit. I worked for the Bureau of Reclamation for 3 years from Northeastern Oregon, and all the after 9/11, there was like that was one of the things that got thought of, and there are safeguards in place for all the United States owned dams at this point. So it's been worked on.
So we can maybe ask them to give us some further reassurance of that. And, it'd be one of the questions that came up from one of our counselors, city counselors yesterday was, have there been any recent, meaning in the last 6 years, seismic studies of any of the dams? He was it's Randy Groves. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he would get briefed rather regularly, I guess, when he was the fire chief. But since he retired, I'm not sure what may have happened in the meantime. And so this kind of goes hand in hand with those kinds of questions. That's exactly what we want, is feedback from everyone. When we meet with them tomorrow, we should probably add to their list.
Yep.
Of things that this will be very informative. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then we're also going to dedicate the December Ready Northwest Eugene meeting. So this same time in December, first Tuesday at 6:30 to 7:30, we're going to dedicate that meeting to kind of unpacking what we learned in the November 14th meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. What were the lessons that came out of there? Are there any next steps? Are there things that we should be doing? Are there conversations we should be having with our local officials, or maybe putting some pressure somewhere for something? We need to come up with next steps, and then we need to ask for some active volunteerism from all of our neighbors to help get involved and push those next steps forward. So our December meeting will be all about that.
Yep, that sounds great. We don't want to drop the ball on this. After such a good meeting, it would be really good for us to take the threads of information and do a follow-up. Also hoping that the people who attend, that some of them are from positions that we know that we're going to have somebody from the city emergency preparedness office there. It won't be Carrie Carl, but it will be someone of her staff, and hopefully we'll have representation from the county as well. And the other neighborhood associations that would be affected by this, I hope, step up. So
Yeah, much bigger conversation than our neighborhood. So we're hoping we're able to generate some buzz around this for sure. So tell your friends if you haven't, come listen to it on November 14th.
yeah.
All right. Anything else on that topic anybody wants to share? All right. So the next item I had on here was talking about the concept of damage assessment teams. So I know Andy Davis and the CERT members, the local CERT community, have really been trying to get some exercises up and running to get damage assessment teams created. And I know there was a recent exercise just, I think this past weekend. I was wondering if anybody here attended that or heard any results of how that went. Small groups, so probably not.
I went to one of those exercises, but I think it was like in last summer or something, over at the fairgrounds, the Alton Baker Park and stuff. And it was, it was pretty interesting, but it was, simulated, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
from what I understand on this one this weekend, they placed envelopes around different areas of neighborhoods, and they had damage written on the envelope, and then they had teams of 3 or maybe 4 people walk around and search for those envelopes to then radio back what the situation was to somebody else who was listening on a radio. So I know the local CERT community is trying to really establish that network. We don't have, I don't think, any damage assessment teams in Bethel or the River Road neighborhood. There might be a couple in Santa Clara, but definitely not enough to cover all of the areas. I recently attended an LA County, Los Angeles County CERT class about damage assessment teams and neighborhood response to a disaster. I saw Fred on that invite too. And they did a really good job of explaining. I'll send out the recording. I saw they posted it to YouTube. I thought they did a really good job of explaining where damage assessment teams fit into the scenario after a disaster. I think in our mind, we hear damage assessment team and think you have to rush out of your house immediately to, search the neighborhood. That's not necessarily the case. The first step is really to secure your home and your own belongings and your own family. You can't help others until you help yourself and until you know that your family is safe and taken care of. And then they moved into meeting up with your neighbors, checking on each other's houses and letting other people know where you're at. You don't want to go searching neighborhoods if you don't tell somebody where you're at, because if something happens to you, nobody knows where to come find you. So we're really looking for people who are interested in that kind of organization on their local street, even just talking to your local neighbors about it. If that's something that you want help with, we can definitely talk about it as a group, come up with ways to generate the interest, but I don't think we have anybody who's signed up for that gig yet. So we're definitely looking for volunteers.
Could we do that as a meeting topic of this group at some point?
It's probably a great idea. We're
Yeah.
looking into 23 already.
And maybe we can all agree to watch that video ahead of time, which sounds interesting. The quality of their presentations is always great in my experience.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good information and just kind of explains where it fits in. It
Mhm.
talks about the long-term response as well. Just because you go out and search your neighbor's street, if it's a big disaster, recovery and response could be happening for days at a time. So
Right.
it did a good overview of the start to finish of a disaster happening. So
Yeah.
I'll share that recording.
Right. That might take some of the question marks away, make it real. It also might be a topic, Fred, for our Map Your Neighborhood group,
Mhm.
the people that don't show up here, but would show up locally. Yeah, great.
At least to talk it through and maybe have a dry run
Yes,
scenario of, okay,
yes.
this is what happens. This is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know who your teams are.
Right.
Go out, report back. We send help if we need to. And move on to the next house.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, live exercises are always, I learn better doing stuff. I think a lot of people learn from that experiential learning much better than listening to somebody talk on Zoom or reading it. So even if you wanted to plan something locally, that's an awesome idea and highly encourage that. Would be happy to help with something like that if you're ever
That'd be great.
trying to get that together.
It would get us back to the topic of radio use too. But at least that would make it seem very relevant, and it might help us on that front as well.
Yep. And that recording also talked about the importance of distinguishing between a damage assessment team and a response team, an incident response team. So your damage assessment team is only searching for things. They're taking notes and they're reporting that back to whoever is in charge of coordinating the messages. there's a separate team that you're supposed to send out for incident response. So if your damage assessment team called and said, I have somebody with a bookcase fallen on them, and they're in this house, and then I have somebody with a, they're impaled because of something much more severe,
Mhm.
when they report those messages back, and then a different team goes out to help those people in a certain priority. So the people who are doing the searching aren't always the ones who are doing the responding or the helping. But it really depends
Okay,
on your, what you've organized together and what you've
right.
set up. So it takes a little prep work.
Good.
Any other ideas, thoughts anybody wants to share about those?
Um,
Oh, the state of Oregon, I believe, was supposed to rewrite the Map Your Neighborhood booklet or pamphlet for Oregon by now, I believe. This is like winter, right? And I believe they were supposed to finish it this fall, so it should be done. That just dawned on me. So anyway, that's probably available somewhere.
I
I
haven't
don't
seen it come
know.
out anywhere. I'm signed up for all the notifications. You could sign up for interest on that, and I haven't seen anything come
Yeah.
out yet.
Well, we've been waiting quite a while on that. One of the topics, I don't know if Fred had mentioned, one of the topics we talked a lot about in our Map Your Neighborhood group was, water storage, and that someone had shared that in our neighborhood, one of the places that people are encouraged to go to in a disaster to get water, if they need water, is Howard Elementary School. And something in the past, a conversation I was having with someone, I think in River Road, sort of raised the question about, was that water potable? I guess at one point it may not have been, maybe they've corrected that, but that got into the whole water purification concerns. And this is a topic we might want to talk about at another time in some detail, is various effective ways of making water that might be available, the only water that might be available to us, and making it drinkable and safe. And in that conversation, there was quite a lot of attention given to Berkey water filters, which is just one brand name, but it's one that has come up several times to me as being one that would be a good choice. And I think I'd like to learn more about that water safety. For one thing, when I went to the Berkey site, one of the things they have are drops that eliminate certain kinds of bacteria that would enable stored water to not have to be replaced every 6 months, but that water could actually last, according to their research, for years. And that would be a huge incentive for people to, if that would turn out to be true. It's really hard work to swap out the water that's in storage every 6 months, if there's a safe way of doing it differently. And also, some people just get discouraged about having to do all of that, or they don't have the space to store huge amounts of water. And I think that it may be time to talk about that and bring the level of options up if our research shows that it's viable. And then we'd have less to be concerned about in terms of potable water if we knew safe ways to filter and store it.
I believe I don't want to nitpick you, Charles Lee, but I believe it's pronounced potable.
Oh, potable, it could be. What was I saying? Potable? Okay, potable. All right.
I
No,
believe.
that's fine. I don't want to say it wrong. Potable.
And there's various. I mean, well, anyway. I've presented on that, on making water potable, and there's a lot of methods, a lot of things you can do, And you know, just bottled water that you buy at Bimart is supposed to be last. It's supposed to be good for like years, I think, as long
Well,
as you don't
there's
open the bottle.
controversy around that, though. I mean, there's people who would say that the plastic also off gases from plastic are problematic. So that's part of the thing I'd like to understand more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, I wonder if we'd be able to maybe have a meeting topic on that in 23 and have people demonstrate different water filtration or treatment techniques. It could be a variety of people that present whatever they might know to share with each other, but maybe that would get people a little more engaged if we were physically
Yeah.
demonstrating something. You know, I have just like a backpacking water filter that you pump the water through, something like that. We could all just kind of share what we know and then nitpick each other's knowledge of what we think is and isn't true.
Yeah, there are two organizations, and I don't have the information off the top of my head, but they actually rate water filters and study the contaminations in water systems throughout the United States. And you can put in Eugene, Oregon, for instance, put in your zip code, and it will tell you the contaminants that exist in our water. Eugene's known to have very good water, but there are in fact things in our water that a lot of people would probably choose to filter out if they knew about them. And so just knowing of those resources where you can go and educate yourself and make those kinds of decisions is very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I
that
wrote down to
go
sorry,
ahead. No, so that when we're going down, I mean, some people have said to me, though, they would go down into the river in a disaster and just bring back buckets of water. And that doesn't sound really appealing to me until that's what sort of made me think, I think I want to learn more about what's effective water decontaminants. That's it.
Yeah, and I wrote down too, to follow up on the Howard Elementary, is that water potable? I did go to
Potable.
the web website and it doesn't specifically say on there right now. So that's definitely something we should know so that our neighborhood can be prepared if we need to be planning for all that extra filtration as well.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about Howard Elementary, the water was the first time they opened up the well, the water had a really bad odor. And this is secondhand, but somebody told me this, and so the EWeb you know, water potability guy was there and said, "Oh, we'll have to do something about this." And I think that was you know, a year or two ago, and it's possible, it's even likely that something has been done to reduce the odor. And whether, you know, and I think, you know, some places the water's okay even if it smells bad, but I mean, anyway, so there's probably an update somewhere on that situation. I've seen a really recent publication that listed Howard Elementary as a site for drinking water during an emergency.
Yes, eWeb just apparently announced it again in their recent materials that went out to all the people who received eWeb bills.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm skeptical.
Okay. Right.
All right. Let's see. The only other thing that we really had on the agenda was just kind of a show or tell of any preparedness activities that you're working on, or share with the group if you need help with anything. But it was great. We got to talk about the Map Your Neighborhood, how to get started there. My husband and I just reviewed our go bags. We had to change out. I went through to check all my clothes because I packed it like in 2020 and I pulled half of my stuff out and it didn't fit anymore. So it's a good reminder to
Yes.
frequently update your clothing. Make sure that when you do leave with your go bag, you're going to be able to use whatever's in it and you're not wasting space with stuff like that. So that was a good exercise. Yeah, Fred.
There's a lady down the street for emergency power. She has a Honda gasoline powered generator, but she's wanting to hook it up to propane tanks and also the natural gas line that comes in from the street. And it doesn't run very well on the natural gas, and I don't know how to fix that. If anybody knows of mechanics familiar with propane power generators, let me know.
So it'll run on propane, but not on the natural gas and that from
It'll run on,
Northwest Natural.
it'll run on gasoline, but the RPM drops by 2/3 when it goes to natural gas.
Mm.
So it wouldn't be enough to run much of anything. I don't know how the mechanism works for keeping the RPMs up.
That might be a question for the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put it out in the meeting notes too. Maybe we'll get a reply that somebody is a expert in that area. Anything else anybody wants to share?
I'm thinking about getting solar power on my house, but I'm at like step 1, and there's a lot of hoops, I think, to jump through.
I'd love to know when you have some of your hoops figured out, how, sort of who you would go through or what you would recommend in terms of considering that. Be very interested.
Yeah, I think, well, eWeb has they have a subsidy or they'll subsidize your they'll subsidize your putting on solar panels, and then they buy the electricity that you generate, and so you have to have a contract with eWeb before you can send your solar power out onto the web, through the eWeb network. And so you're going to have to work with them in the beginning, is eWeb, and then got to find a contractor who does solar power stuff and all that. And that's all I know. I haven't called. I have the first step is calling eWeb, I think, and
Yeah.
and then, but I have some ideas about which brands of solar panels and stuff that.
Oh, good.
It's anyway. It's a long process, I think, or it can be a long process.
Yeah.
And I'll certainly keep you up on it.
Thank you. Yeah. Great. I can't
All
think
right.
of anything else right now.
Yeah, me either. Well, I think that works as a place to end our meeting. So I'll stop the recording here.